Hello one and all, today is the 15th of October, it's a Tuesday. My name is Ray from Next Forex Trade, here to talk about Forex. Firstly, apologies for not being online yesterday. There were a few tech discs with my streaming software, which meant that I wasn't able to do the live stream, and also this morning, which means I'm slightly later today, but here today, so let's crack on. Let's just see what's going on. Since yesterday, I had opened two positions, as you can see, that are open here. So one on the EURCAD, one on NZDCAD. We'll come to those a bit later, but let's just, as normal, just cycle through the market. Let's see what's going on in the market in terms of opportunities. So just a quick overview of the strategy. As normal, basically it's a trend-based strategy. It uses price action and time frame correlation. So the first thing that we're looking for is the daily, which is my chart here. So it's a daily, 4 hourly, 15.5. We're looking at the daily firstly to structure our trade. If there's nothing on the daily, then we don't look at the lower time frames, but on the daily we're looking for trend to be in place. Simple price action, lower lows in a downtrend, lower lows and lower highs, and uptrend, higher highs and higher lows. What I look for as well is, you can see I've got a standard deviation channel around the price here, so this helps guide my decision as to whether the price is overbought or oversold. In a downtrend, we're looking for it to be in this upper half here. So this is the average of standard deviation channel. This is the upper edge here. So we're looking for it to be in this type of area here, not down here. The price is too oversold here. We're looking for it to be overbought as much as possible, which gives us decent value for money. In terms of entry, we are looking as well for these lower time frames to be correlating with the higher time frame. So we want them also to be in downtrends, so showing signs of lower lows, lower highs, to enable us to have the best value for money in terms of entry. In terms of stop loss in a downtrend, we're looking for a stop ideally above the lower high on the daily chart. So with that in mind, let's crack on. Let's have a look at what we've got going on at the moment. We've got the AUD, just cycle through. So we've got AUDCAD. First of all, clear signs of bearishness, lower lows, lower highs. Price had been in a kind of overbought area type here, interacting near our higher standard deviation channel. Also was interacting with this resistance that we saw here. Now the price at the moment has moved away from those previous that previous lower high. Really, for this to be viable for a short, we're looking for signs of bearishness on the lower time frames. So the 4 hourly's it's okay. I mean, it's broken this support that we saw here, which is good. So it's broken, starting to make lower highs and lower lows. The price action isn't too mature. It's better on the hourly. Got a bit more context here. So certainly if we were looking to short this, what I would want to see using the hourly as a guide here is a bit more value for money. So the price to come back, interact with our upper standard deviation channel, show a candle something like one of these ones here, offer this type of level. It would be a good area as well, because it would be interacting with this previous support that we saw. So we're looking for it to find resistance, offer this type of level, show a reversal candle, and potentially short the price, short the market as the price moves past the low of our interacting candle. Stop losses in this instance would be above these previous highs here, which is the same as this lower high here on the daily, and it would allow for a 1-to-1 reward to risk, which is, you know, relatively good. Just eyeballing it, I mean, stop above that level would mean that your take profit on a 1-to-1 reward to risk would be around these levels, which is good because it's still before this previous lower low here, and it's still in a very it's not, the price wouldn't have been too oversold as well. So yeah, potential trade there on AUDCAD, but would need to see some pullback, which we could see in today's sessions. Pull back to these highs here to short that potentially. So let's move on. We're looking at the AUDCHF here. Clear signs of lower lows, lower highs in the daily. It's a bit too much limbo here for me at the moment. I probably would have mentioned this last week. At the moment, we can see overall there's this bearishness with lower lows, lower highs, but that isn't really a similar story that we're seeing on the lower time frames. There isn't really a lot of bearishness that we're seeing on these at the moment. what we'd want to see is these to start to roll over and start producing lower lows and lower highs. So for example, on the hourly, for it to break this previous support level here, this previous low, because this is a higher low in the context here, going from low to high, we want more context from high to low. So break through this previous support, you can see this is quite a significant level, some previous resistance there, these types of levels quite zonal. So the price moving lower than that and then pulling back would allow for a better entry on that. So not for today. AUDJPY, same story with this one, bearish overall, but the lower time frames here aren't really showing much signs of bearishness as of yet. We want to see it break these types of support here, just to give some clarity that this bearishness could continue to the downside. Would allow us to put a standard deviation from the high to the low as it breaks that support and moves lower, and it would fall into the story that we're seeing on the daily of this bearishness overall. So I'd want to see that first before attempting to short the AUDJPY. So next, this is the AUD/USD. I mean, overall, yeah, I'd be bearish on this. This move here would have a lot of context on the weekly if we were to go up a time frame. This is certainly very bearish, but this most recent action isn't really great in terms of readability. You can see it's hit these previous lows here, found support here, moved away. For this to be more readable for me, what I would probably want to see at this point is it, move higher to our standard deviation to create a clearer lower high in this context here in the downtrend, giving a bit more value for money, and also for our lower time frames here to start to roll over. The hourly started to do it, but really I'd want to see that on the 4 hourly as well. So effectively move higher first and then start to show signs of bearishness. So pass on that for today as well. So let's see what's next. So we got CAD CHF. Nothing too readable in this at the moment. It's still very choppy, very kind of boxy, hitting these previous highs here. So it's encountering a lot of resistance. No discernible trend, and as this is a trend-based strategy, we really want to see some trend in place to make this viable. So this resistance here, you wouldn't want to buy into that. At the same time, there's not really anything to base a short off of either. So I'd pass on that one. So CAD JPY, let's have a look here. So this is readable in terms of the daily. We've got some nice signs of bearishness. Fits nicely within our standard deviation, lower highs, lower lows, the upper edge of our standard deviation. It's just pierced through the top of it. But it's just the way this price action moves. It's very, the ways the lower highs are created, it's very rangy. You can see the kind of distance it takes to make the new lower high. It's quite a distance from this high to this high, from this high. They're all quite a far distance, which means it's probably going to take a long time in your money to, if you're going to short this, it's probably going to take a while for it to come to fruition. Also, our 4 hourly, they're not as readable at the moment. 4 hourly, because of the way that price action moves very choppily in the daily, it's going to take a while for these lower highs to materialize on the 4 hourly. So I would pass on this just because it's not there's easier stuff to read out there, and if there's easier stuff, go with that rather than trying to overcomplicate something unnecessarily. So here we've got the CHF JPY, some nice price action here, moving lower lows, lower highs, fits neatly within our standard deviation. Looks like it could be producing a lower high here, but again, what's missing for this for me is these lower time frames don't give any discernible bearishness, no lower lows, lower highs in these to make this tradable. So I would pass on this certainly for today, but a longer term outlook, be bearish on this, just waiting for better entry signals based on these lower time frames. So pass on that one. So we've got Euro AUD here. We've got I've mentioned this a few times. Would have still been bullish on this. We'd have probably had an entry last week if you'd gone based on my recommendation on this one. My main concern was the stop loss placement. Based on this, the bigger move here would mean a stop loss below these lows, this higher low here. I mean, in recent action, we could discount some of this and just look at this move here. right? This has context on the daily, which is this same move that we're seeing on the 4 hourly. So this is readable. So you could trade this aggressively, slightly aggressively in my opinion, by looking for stops below this type of level here based on the daily. So this here is our standard deviation, and it's interacted here, producing what we could deem as a higher low and also some support as well. We can see this support goes back to these previous highs here. This will be more apparent on the lower time frames actually. So if we bring up the hourly, you can see that same support that I'm talking about. This low here, these previous highs. It's kind of zonal here. It goes back, zonal. So basically, stops below that level would make sense. The reason I'm calling this slightly aggressive is the price action on daily isn't ideal in terms of the way that it's kind of extending and pulling back, but it's still readable to go for the stop loss below this type of level here. So in fact, it comes up to this like this. So yeah, stops below here, 1-to-1 reward to risk would certainly stack. It would be slightly risky because it would probably take profit to around about these highs, which is not my preference. I prefer to take profits off before previous highs, but on a 1-to-1, yeah, it's still viable. It still looks achievable. Certainly in this, when we zoom out in terms of this bigger move, it certainly looks viable. But the short-term move is slightly more. It's a bit more of a tight type of taking profits off here. But potentially, if it were to break these highs, then these types of highs here would be the next types of levels that we're looking at. So yeah, this would make sense. The way I would, if I were to go into this, I'm not looking to enter this because I've got ready positions open. But this would certainly be kind of lower on my risk profile. Definitely 0.5% to maybe 1%, just because the daily doesn't really qualify in terms of that ideal price action I'd normally look for. So 0.5%. Yeah, to 1%, and just so you know, my risk profile is kind of between 0.5% and 3%, all in on a position. So this is tradable, but it's not ideal. So the risk kind of adjustment adapts to that. So this here is the EURCAD position I took yesterday. So this is one I'm short on. Based on the daily, we've got some nice lower lows, lower highs in action here. It's currently, what is this, EURCAD? So this one here is currently £20 in profit. So you can see that I've put my stop loss above these previous highs that we saw here in the price action. So I'm deeming this as a lower high here. It is slightly not great in that I would have preferred to see, it would have been better if the price had come up to these levels before showing signs of reversal, because in terms of the downtrend here, it's still kind of in the middle, the average of our standard deviation, meaning that there could still be some bullishness to the upside before it's really overbought. But based on what the low time frames were saying, I knew what the risks were in that sense. The 4 hourly had a lot of context to have my stops above that previous lower high there. So I was willing to take that risk. It's probably not one that I'm going to scale into because of that. So I'm not going to add any more positions to this. But you can see where my take profit is. It's before this previous lower low here, which is my preference again, because it means that the price doesn't have to break and make new lows for me to profit off of this. Even if it comes to this level, finds support, bounces away, I've already made the decision to take money off the table before that. So this is a reasonable 1-to-1, slightly risky because of where the price is on daily, but at least the lower time frames here are definitely correlating and giving some good signs of bearishness, at least in the near future. So yep, that's one that I'll update you with tomorrow as the price progresses. So we've got the Euro Swissy here. Euro Swissy is yeah, I'd leave this for now. Definite signs of bearishness overall. You can see that in previous days it's hit this resistance here, these levels, these previous highs. So the price is probably going to have much trouble moving much higher than this. but there's still a little bit too much bullishness in this for me in terms of what the lower times frames are saying. This is all fitting still neatly within the standard deviation to show signs that the price could move. You know, it's finding support, clear support here. So this could still have legs to the upside before before potentially reversing and showing signs of bearishness. So this is one that I would just leave for now. There's no there's not enough correlation really on these time frames for me to short that or even go long, so I would pass on that. Euro GBP, had this, you know, on the back of the pound strength. This move here has, let's get rid of this. This move here is the context I'm looking at for the bearish move, but it's just too oversold at the moment. You wouldn't really want to short this now because it's just too far gone in this extension. So really, to make this viable, this needs to pull back, find some value here, interact with our upper edge of our standard deviation and ideally previous resistance as well in the price, to make this potentially shortable. And obviously these lower time frames as well would need to pull back and then roll over again to show lower lows and lower highs. So Euro GBP, pass on. So we got Euro JPY. No, bearish overall, hitting resistance. We can see fell neatly within, you know, this previous lower high here and also our standard deviation. So it's good in terms of, you know, the price could have trouble moving higher than this level, but as of yet there hasn't really been the bearishness that we need to see in these lower time frames. They haven't rolled over to start showing lower lows and lower highs, which is what we want for that time frame correlation. So I would pass on Euro JPY. Euro NZD, no, this clear signs of bullishness, higher highs, higher lows. What I want is for this still to come back, find some support off of these types of levels or the standard deviation as it moves up the lower edge of our standard deviation. Yeah, it looks, I mean, it's very bullish at the moment. Could be encountering resistance at these previous highs here, but really to make this a viable trade, it needs to pull back, find support off of these types of levels, and then show signs of moving higher on these lower time frames as well. So pass on that one. Okay, yeah. Euro USD, clear signs of bearishness. You can see it's interacting with our standard deviation at the upper edge. It's also previous resistance from these highs here, previous support. So stop loss above that type of level would make sense. Let's see what the 4 hourly is doing in terms of its standard deviation. It's finding support off of our standard deviation. So this isn't quite ready yet. So this move here is the same as this on the 4 hourly, and we can see that the price at the moment is still finding support off, you know, off of this level here where it's the standard deviation as well as the previous highs here, previous lows here, and this goes back. So it's quite a zonal area that the price is finding support at. So for this to be viable, it would really need to break much lower than that, break down, start producing lower lows and lower highs, and then pull back. So that would then allow us to have the standard deviation from the high to the low as it moves down, rather than the low to the high which it's currently in. So yeah, going into this week, this might materialize to make this more viable as a trade, but wouldn't be looking to short that just yet. GBP AUD, again, pound strength has meant that a lot of these are a bit too overextended at the moment to consider going long on. Needs to find some value, so this needs to pull back, find some support around these types of levels and show signs of reversal to potentially go long on this. But this is just too expensive to buy at the moment, so pass on that. Same here, GBP CAD, too overextended, needs to pull back, find some value before potentially going long on. Again, another GBP cross. GBP strength is really seeing a lot of these being overextended. We can see it's finding resistance near the upper edge of our standard deviation, which gives us some clues that the price could be falling away and coming back to find some value, back to the average, the mean, or the oversold area here. But we need to wait till it's oversold in these areas here to give it value for money before going long. So pass on that one. Euro JPY, again another GBP cross showing strength with the GBP. Two overbought, sorry. It needs to be more oversold to make this viable as a trade. Again another GBP cross. This is just too far gone, needs to pull back. GBP USD, yeah, it's just too much limbo at the moment. There is still context to this downtrend, especially if you were to look on the weekly. This would be you know, very, very bearish, but the weekly is a bit too high of a time frame for this type of swing trading strategy. There's still context as well to this bullish move here, this retrace in terms of this downtrend here. We could deem this as a retrace, but it could also be a potential reversal. Either way, the timing isn't really great to be, you know, either side of this in terms of being long or short. So certainly this is one that I would pass for now. This is the NZDCAD. It's a bit too late to be on this. This does look, I mean, this is, you know, beautiful price action. We saw it interacting with our standard deviation over previous days. I think the reason I've got that line in there was from, if you look at last week's videos, what I would have been saying is we'd be waiting for the price to break through that support. Wait for that to break, wait for that to break. It did break, and there were viable entries on this when it pulled back. So for me, the entry on this would have been when it was up here, and it would have meant a stop loss above these previous lower highs here. But the price at the moment is just a little bit too oversold. It needs to pull back again, find some value off the standard deviation, show some signs of reversal, produce a new lower high, making that short more viable. In fact, this is very similar. This is very similar to one of the trades that I am in. So I did enter this in terms of this similar price action, but on a different pair. So we'll come to that in a sec. This is NZDJPY, very bearish overall, lower lows, lower highs. Price action isn't really great for reading. This is a bit messy. The daily's good in terms of price action. Could be better value in terms of it finding better resistance off of our standard deviation, but really the 4 hourly and lower time frames aren't really showing definitive signs of bearishness to short this for me. So I'll pass on that. So this is the other trade that I'm in, NZDUSD. This is the one that was similar to the NZDCAD. I chose this one for a few reasons, but yeah, I wouldn't want to be in both of those trades because they're basically the same trade. But this one at the moment is about £50 up, so it's halfway to profit target. I'm going for one reward to risk on this. So I've entered this based on this bearishness that we see on the daily chart. Lower lows, lower highs. Had a nice reference point for our stop loss above this previous lower high, which also interacted with our standard deviation, which also interacted with previous resistance, support. That will be more apparent on our lower time frames. But basically, that kind of interaction meant that we had a good reference point for a stop above that level. And the price on the lower time frames as well. It's a bit messy here. Let's just tidy that up. The price on the lower time frames on the 4 hourly, it started to break price structure. In fact, when I entered, you can see I entered here, my kind of and I mentioned this on my trading view video that I done. So if you're on trading view, just search for next Forex trade, you'll see my video on the entry on this one. But the problem here was only really on the 4 hourly, because the 4 hourly was showing a lot of support, and at my time of entry it hadn't broken through that support as of yet. So that's why this was I was slightly hesitant on this, because I hadn't had that confirmation yet on the 4 hourly. But the time of entry, the hourly was looking good. There was context to these lower highs and lower lows. So I was willing to, take a position based on what the daily and the other time frames bar the 4 hourly was showing. So it was good enough premise to short this based on those. We can see at the moment so this is about £50 going to oversold kind of area here. So in the interim, probably going to see some pullback. In fact, I'd anticipate some pullback before it hits my take profit, if it does. And there could be scope to scale into this as well. You can see my take profit as well is way before this previous low that we're seeing here, which is generally my preference because it doesn't have to break new lows to hit my take profit. But if the price action allows and we start to see, you know, decent lower highs in this may be one that I consider scaling into. So to increase my risk from just 1% to perhaps 2% overall, because there is scope in this to the downside. So yeah, I'll update you on this tomorrow, see how that one materializes. USDCAD. Very sideways. Let me just see what the swap on this is. Yeah, it's not too bad. This is definitely showing signs of bullishness with higher highs and higher lows, but similar to that other one we were looking at where it was very kind of rangy in terms of the way it's creating these new highs. It takes a while for them to be produced. I'd anticipate being long on this. It could take a while before it hits take profits, but I can still see enough context in this to be long, and the reference point we're looking at is here in terms of a stop loss. So I'm deeming this as a higher low here, and you can see it's also hit previous support here zonally, here like resistance and support. So stop below that level makes sense. Going from 1-to-1 reward to risk would mean you've got a 1-to-1 reward to risk around about these highs here. So that stacks just on the 1-to-1. Potentially the price, if it follows through with this bullishness that we're seeing on the daily, then these highs and then these highs are a scope for the take profit. So this could be one to scale into. It's just that the lower time frames aren't great in kind of echoing what we want to see in terms of that bullishness, and that's because of this very rangy movement that we're seeing on the daily. But it's just the character of this pair, the personality of it. So it's not going to be perfect kind of higher highs, high lows that we see on these low time frames. But I'd be willing enough to put a again, if I wasn't already in positions, go for a long on this with stops below there, and then a 1-to-1 take profit would mean, you know, taking profits around about these highs here. So this here it's okay. Again, this is probably like the 0.5%, maybe 1% at a stretch in terms of risk of capital. If it were to break these highs and, you know, still maintain that position, then certainly scaling into this one that I would be willing to do because of the scope of it, you know, going to these types of highs here. But yeah, I would really need to, if that would be one to think about if I wasn't already in positions. But that is tradable. USDCAD. USD Swissy, no, not really. This is bullish overall, but the placement of the price action at the moment isn't great. I would like to see it pull back and find some support to give it some value to be long on this. Yeah, it's just a little bit too far gone on this move. It needs to pull back, find some value to make this a more viable long position. USD CAD, I'd leave this for now, hitting resistance, which is good in terms of the bearishness that we need to see. So this has now the potential falling away after it's interacting with this previous resistance, like kind of previous support levels here, resistance here, here. So this is clearly a price that the prices had clearly a level the prices had trouble moving higher then. So stop loss above those types of levels would make sense. But for me at the moment, these lower time frames aren't really showing any signs of definitive bearishness that we want to see. We want to see these break the price structure, break this support, stop making these higher highs and start making lower highs and lower lows, allowing for standard deviation channel to be, you know, from the high to the low, something like that. Oh, well, it's not really going to make sense because there's not enough price action. But at the moment, this still has too much context, right? So from low to high, we want it to have context from high to low, and for it to start making low lows, lower highs, and start breaking lower. So yeah, should that happen in coming days, potentially, you know, USD JPY could be a short, but certainly not for today. But that is it. That's the entire market. So I will be back again tomorrow. If you found the video useful, let me know. Give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, means a lot to me. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again for Wednesday's session tomorrow. Take care. Bye.